think there's one paradigm that plays a disproportionate effect in determining whether a young, ambitious consultant is going to achieve their ambitions in terms of, climbing the ladder quickly, let's say. If I take a step back first and quickly talk about what a paradigm is, a paradigm essentially is the way that you see the world. It's like a core belief, a principle of yours. The analogy that I like to use to think about it is that we have the world, like the world exists, right? No shit, Brock, good one. But the world exists, and the world is kind of like a photo that you might take. You take a photo, and it just is what it is. Then you can overlay on that photo an Instagram filter, let's say. All right, you can put a filter on that photo. Now, the filter doesn't change what the actual photo itself is. It's still the photo of the same thing, but it changes the way that the photo looks. And I think of paradigms the same way. The world is what it is, and then our paradigms alter the way that we see the world. We don't see the world for what it is. We see the world through the lens of our paradigms. And that's like a meta paradigm. That's a core paradigm of mine that when I am out living in the world and that sort of thing, I'm not seeing the world for what it is. I'm seeing the world through my own paradigms, through my own value systems and my own beliefs. And that's something I could talk about for a whole other, probably hours and hours on own, because I think that alone is so powerful in terms of changing your perceptions, the way that you see things. Anyway, what I actually wanted to talk about was one paradigm in particular that I think has a disproportionate impact on whether, somebody who's gunning for promotions and that sort of thing. I'm thinking of a graduate or a consultant who wants to quickly make the steps up to senior consultant, senior analyst, whatever it's called, where you are up to manager and that sort of thing. And that paradigm, the way that I'll talk about it, perhaps I'll talk about just in terms of what the two kind of opposing schools of thoughts are. One school of thought is, all right, I'm a consultant, I'm a graduate, whatever. I'm going to do my job really well as a consultant. Then I'm going to ask for a promotion to senior consultant. And then once I become a senior consultant, I will then start performing the roles and duties of a senior consultant. That's one school of thought. The other school of thought is, all right, I'm a consultant today. I'm going to do my core consultant role really well, but then I'm actually going to also do the roles and responsibilities of a senior consultant. Then I'm going to ask for a promotion to senior consultant. Now, so they're both similar, but they're both very different as well. I think what's more effective if you want to climb the ladder quickly is to take the second paradigm, and that is to perform the role of the level above you. And that's what I tried to do when I was a graduate starting out. I looked around the senior consultants and the managers around me, and I wanted to get to a point where I could do the same job as they were doing as quickly as possible. Now, you also need to be mindful of and respectful of the fact that those people are actually, they are higher than you on the hierarchy. They probably have more experience than you and that sort of thing. So when I say that I wanted to do the roles of the senior consultants and the managers around me, it's not about discrediting them or thinking that in the space of a month or a few months I could, get to the level where of what they were when they had years of experience and that sort of thing. It's not about that. It's about it's about the pursuit of trying to do the role that they do, right? It's not ultimately even whether about you get there or not, because realistically you probably won't, because they have more years of experience than you. But if you can do close to the same role as them, albeit likely at a lower quality, you are still going to be far exceeding the expectations of your current role, right? So if you're a consultant and you're gunning to do the role of the senior cons around you, even if you don't get to the point where you can match the senior cons around you, in the process of pursuing that, you will be, a more effective consultant at your level. And I think back to when I was a grad, I had this phase where I was really into affirmations. This was during COVID lockdowns and that sort of thing. So I had, way too much spare time. Not that there's anything, wrong with affirmations. It's just not really who I am, but I was experimenting a bit. And one of the affirmations that I had at the time was, so again, this is when I was a graduate, I used to write down my affirmations every morning, and I wrote down, I think I had 4, might have been 5, I can't remember, but one of them, the first one I remember, it was, I am a senior consultant. I just haven't been promoted yet. And I can't remember where I heard that. I definitely didn't come up with that. I heard or read someone somewhere talking about just writing like, I can't remember what context. It might have been like, I'm a marathon runner. I just haven't finished the race yet, or something like that. I don't know. But I liked it from a work perspective. And so I started thinking, yeah, I'm a senior consultant. I just haven't been promoted yet. And even though I didn't necessarily believe that day one, that was what I was gunning for. I basically wanted to be a senior consultant without the title. Now, some people really dislike that. Not in terms of like giving a shit about me, but they dislike that in terms of they don't want to be a senior consultant without the title or without the pay of a senior consultant. And that's that first paradigm that I was talking about. You want to be a consultant, then you want to get promoted, then you want to be a senior consultant. What I'm talking about is you're a consultant, but you act and do the role of a senior consultant, and then you get promoted. And I totally get why people don't want to do that, for what it's worth. Like, I can see how you could quite easily, depending on your paradigm, see that as, oh, I'm being taken advantage of. No, I'm not going to do that role until I'm paid for it. And again, I totally get that. And if you're watching this and you're kind of thinking, well, what the hell are you talking about, Brock? Of course I don't want to do the role of a senior con when I'm not being paid for it. Then fair enough. And for what it's worth, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. My perspective is that that's going to make it harder for you if you want to make the jump to senior consultant quicker, or to manager, or to whatever level it is that you're trying to do. So it's not that one's right or wrong, but it's that if your goal is to climb the ladder quickly, I think one paradigm is advantageous to that. You're going to have a higher chance of success if you take the second paradigm. Now, why is that? I think it's quite straightforward, really. If you're a consultant, you're doing the role of a senior consultant, then your case for promotion is kind of a no-brainer. You're already doing the job. I remember when I was starting out, the way that I wanted to think about my performance reviews and like asking for promotions was I wanted it to be so that if I got told no, that it would be really, really hard for the leader to tell me no, and that they would almost feel, I don't know how to describe it, not that they would feel silly telling me no, but that they would find it hard to give me an answer as to why it had to be no. They couldn't turn around and say, oh, it's because you need to work on this, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. I wanted to take all of those off the table so that if they were going to say no, they were going to have to flat out tell me, oh, because of, I don't know, budget or something like that. I basically wanted to make my case bulletproof and undeniable, where if I didn't get it, you'd look at it and go, how the hell did they not give that to him? All right. And it's not because I thought like that much of myself, or because I thought, oh, they're going to have to give it to me. It was more about, again, coming back to, it was the pursuit of trying to achieve that, trying to build a case that was simply undeniable. You don't ultimately get to a case that is undeniable, because obviously they could have turned around and said no, like it wasn't undeniable. But in the process of trying to build an undeniable case, you do build a case which is much stronger than what you would have otherwise, right? And it puts you ahead of your peers, is the other thing as well. The reality of, the business world, consulting world, just life in general, is that a lot of things are competitive and a lot of things are comparative. And imagine there's 10 consultants and they are going to promote 2 of them. They're going to most likely promote, well, in theory, they should promote the 2 who are the most capable and doing the best job, right? One way that you can do the best job and be at the top of your cohort is to be actually kind of playing in the cohort above you, right? So on paper, you're a consultant, but from a day-to-day perspective, you're actually aligning yourself to the senior consultants in the team. You're trying to do the role of the senior consultants, so that it's kind of a no-brainer that you're top of the consultant tree. But again, I get why people, why that's not for everyone, because, climbing the ladder as quickly as possible isn't for everyone. And I mean that like in the best possible way, in terms of You can have a whole number of different things that interest you outside of work that make you kind of want to go, no, I don't want to. I don't want to go out and do all these extra things above and beyond because I want to go to badminton practice, or I want to go like play darts, or whatever it is. Like for you, it could be anything. Could be reading, could be writing, could be running. I totally get why people, yeah. And I think also there's this big underlying narrative these days, especially from like my generation, around big companies and big consulting firms taking advantage of like people at the bottom, and then people at the top kind of sitting on the desk, kicking their feet up and that sort of thing. And that's another paradigm where if you see it that way, then you're probably not going to be as successful as what you could be. Because how could you possibly... Because I fundamentally believe that the best way to get is to give, right? So... And that's the way that I thought about when I was a consultant trying to do the role of a senior consultant. I was trying to give more than I was getting, right? I'm giving more. I'm giving the value of a senior consultant, or at least, close to it. And I'm getting a consultant or a graduate salary. When you give more than you get, things eventually level out. That's one of my core beliefs anyway. And in fact, sometimes it completely reverses and you end up getting more than you're giving. And one reason for that is, I think, simply leverage. When it comes to any promotion discussion or any pay discussion or any negotiation in general, really, whether you're trying to win a piece of work or you're trying to negotiate something like with your partner at home, whatever it might be, it often comes down to leverage. And when you join as a consultant or a senior consultant, whatever it is, when you're at the lower rungs of the hierarchy, the reality is that there's often not much leverage there for you because there's probably a lot of other people in your cohort. It obviously depends team to team, firm to firm, but especially in the context of, like, as I'm recording this at the moment, where the market and the economy is at, a lot of junior staff don't necessarily have much leverage at all. In fact, people are being let go. So you don't have much leverage to ask for a promotion and a pay increase. But I would say the one way that you can build leverage for yourself is to provide more value than what you are getting back, because that makes you really valuable. If you can be a consultant or a grad who is a dependable set of hands, can get the job done, can be put on an engagement, can fill the role of a senior consultant, that's extremely valuable for anybody above you on the hierarchy, any manager who's got to work with you, any senior manager, associate director, partner. They're going to love you for that, and they're going to want to keep you because of that. And what happens when they want to keep you? Well, obviously that gives you a bit of leverage because now they want to keep you. So when you ask for a promotion or you ask for a pay increase, you increase your chances that that's going to be successful. Now, it doesn't guarantee it, obviously. And when I talk about it that way, it can come across like you're trying to, manipulate people or trick people, because I'm talking about it gives you leverage and those sorts of things. But it's not about that at all. Like, the fundamental way that I believe you get leverage is by giving. It's not about tricking the leaders above you into, wanting to keep you or pay you more or anything like that. It's about actually being so valuable that they will innately want to keep you and they'll want to promote you and they'll want to pay you more. Well, they may not want to pay you more or promote you, but they will want to look after you because they see the value that you're providing, they see your potential and all those sorts of things. And now fundamentally, that doesn't happen as strongly if your perspective, your paradigm is, don't hit me with that senior consultant work. I don't want to do that stuff because you're not paying me for it. I want to be paid and then I'll do the job. And you'll still climb the hierarchy with that perspective because ultimately you'll have enough experience, enough tenure, enough time in role where you will get promoted. And so again, coming back to there's nothing wrong with that perspective. It's not like you're going to get booted out or you're going to be a terrible employee or anything like that. You can absolutely be a really competent, valuable member of a firm by doing the role that you are paid to do. Because by definition, it's the role that you're paid to do, right? All I want to share is that if your ambition is to climb the ladder quicker, then I think that paradigm is going to hold you back. And you can turn around and say like that's not fair, because again, I'm being paid to be a consultant. I shouldn't have to do the role of a senior consultant to get promoted. And again, I get that. I totally get the perspective of that not being fair. It was the same when I was a grad. I kind of thought about it and I was like, is that fair? Is that right? And I don't know. Even now, I don't know. But I stopped thinking about whether I thought it was fair or not, whether I could change that, because ultimately I'm just one person. I'm just a tiny little cog in this massive machine, and I can't control that. I'm a massive believer that you got to just control the controllables. Stephen Covey, in his book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, introduced the concept of the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And you can imagine this big circle called the circle of concern, and in it sits everything that may concern you, but you have no influence over. Things like the weather, the traffic, whether or not you need to perform the role of a senior consultant before you get promoted. There are all these different things, the reasons people get promoted that you can't necessarily control. But within that big circle of concern, there is a smaller circle of influence. And within that circle of influence is everything that you can influence, right? So you may not be able to influence some of the bigger picture things in terms of, ways that, or like reasons partners promote people, or the way that the big firms work and that sort of thing. But what you can influence is just the quality of your work and what you're doing every day, right? What you can influence is whether you perform the roles of the people above you. What you can influence is whether you delight your clients, they write you great feedback, and you make the lives of the managers above you easier because you're doing a good job. You can control all that. But and that's a good model. I like that way of thinking about things. A circle of concern, within that, a circle of influence, you focus on that. But for me, the really insightful piece that Stephen Covey called out in the book was that as you spend more time in your circle of influence, your circle of influence increases in size, right? So you imagine like these two circles. You got like your big circle of concern, and then you got your circle of influence inside it. As you spend more time in your circle of influence, it grows and it grows and it grows. Why? Because you're spending time on the shit that you can actually control, right? So if you're spending time and your mental energy, your physical energy on the things that you can control, you're going to be more productive, you're going to be more effective. What happens when you're more productive and more effective? You get more, you get promoted, you get paid more, you get more influence, whatever it might be. And that allows you to have greater control over more things, right? So, that's a bit of a tangent to come back to the fair question. So I suppose all I want to say is that it's not for me to say whether it's like right or wrong or fair or not fair. And if you want to fight that fight, then Godspeed to you. Fight the fight. But if you just want to control what you can control, play the rules of the game that you're in, you want to climb the ladder quickly. And ultimately, I found it very fulfilling trying to do the roles of the level above me, because it made me feel really... One simple thing that I've learned is that how good you feel at your job seems to have a very strong impact on how you feel about your job. So I've been through different phases in my career. Take the early part of my career, right? I was trying to go from consultant to senior consultant. I felt very good about my work because I knew deep down that I was outperforming my role. And that made me very happy, very fulfilled, very satisfied. I quite liked working because I felt really confident. I felt really competent and capable. I've also been through phases where I kind of felt the opposite. Not to the same extent, but like I've been through phases where I didn't really feel that confident about my work and what I was providing relative to kind of where I sat. And this isn't me complaining about that, by the way. It's completely through my own choices and journey that I decided to take. But I've been through the other side of that, and it's kind of fascinating how much of an impact that has on how you feel about your work. Suddenly, you don't look forward to it as much. You don't feel as like comfortable or, I don't know, like happy and outgoing and that sort of thing. So I think I could leave you with one message. It would be, if you want to climb the ladder quicker, and again, that's a big if because not for everyone, but if you have ambitions to rise through the ranks relatively quickly, I think one of the best ways you can do that is to adopt a paradigm of trying to provide more value than you're paid. And the simplest way to do that is to try and perform the role of the people above you, the senior cons, the managers. Now, I'm not just saying that now as an associate director because I want, the consultants in my team to, provide more value than they're paid and that sort of thing. I'm sharing this because it's what I did. It's what I did to kind of have the journey that I've had. And I think it's a paradigm that not many people share. And again, I get why. But I think it's a real advantage to you if it resonates with you. If it resonates with you. Provide more value than what you're paid. You will get rewarded quicker to catch up with that. Again, it's the law of fair exchange, right? Because the law of fair exchange basically dictates that there has to be fair exchange. Because let's say that you're a consultant, you're doing the role of a senior consultant. That's not fair exchange, right? I should say, let's assume it's not fair exchange because while you've got the title of a consultant and the salary of a consultant, your firm or your company may actually be providing lots of other benefits that you really appreciate, whether it's like training or mentorship. So it could actually be a fair exchange. But let's take a simple example where you're a consultant performing the role of a senior consultant, and that's not fair exchange, right? Not in the short term. The law of fair exchange still comes into play. So what does it mean? What it means is that if your firm or your company will not come to the table and, meet fair exchange, if you're providing value up here, but they're rewarding you for this, if they're not going to come up to that level, you will find that level somewhere else. Because that's just nature. That's just what's always going to happen. And so I think no matter what happens, you're a winner because you'll either be able to stay at the firm or the company that you're at and climb the ladder quicker, climb the pay bands quicker and all that sort of thing. Because again, you're kind of providing that value in advance and then asking them to come up and match it, which is a very different conversation to, I'm here, you're paying me for this. Now I want you to promote me up here and trust that I'm going to hit that level. You can see why it's so different for a leader, right? It's a no-brainer where you can already be up there and then ask them to just come up and match. It's a much easier sell. And again, it means that for a while there isn't that fair exchange, but you do climb quicker. And again, I'd even challenge the fair exchange thing because what I was saying earlier about how I actually just enjoyed my job more. So while they weren't providing me that joy, let's say, I felt better at work. I felt really comfortable, really confident. So, and even if your firm or company won't do that, they won't meet you up there, which they would be wise to do, right? Because they're not going to find somebody else who's going to do that. Then you'll go and find it elsewhere, right? It's super common in the world of, whether it's big four consulting firms or other corporates and that sort of thing. You'll jump laterally, you'll go move somewhere else, and you'll get that value there. And then you play the same thing again. And I'm talking about it a lot for cons and senior cons, but it's actually what I've done ever since. So once I made senior consultant, and actually I wrote an article about this on my LinkedIn, I can't remember, a couple of years ago, and it wasn't just about this. I think it was an article I wrote about my reflections on being a graduate in the Big Four world. And I think one of the lessons that I pulled out, it was probably like 2 or 3 years ago when I wrote that, was exactly what I'm talking about now. So, and I had another point I was going to talk about, but I can't even remember what it was now. But I think I just wanted to share that because I love all the tools and techniques and tips and all these little tidbits that you can pick up which make you more effective at your job. And again, I've got an 8-week challenge that I run that you can sign up for, which covers lots of those things. But I also think that there is something to be said for just like the fundamental principles, the way that you see the world, the way that you perceive things, which ultimately has an impact on how effective you are at work. So, cheers.